The first thing I learn inside the hospital is that pain has a smell. It is not the clean sting of antiseptic they promise in the catechisms, not the sharp purity the picked feeds show when the administratum needs compliance statistics to look humane. It is thicker than that, sweeter, copper and rot braided together, soaked into incense until even the prayers reek of it. I breathe it in before I open my eyes. And some animal part of me understands that this place is not meant to heal so much as to process. My eyes open on their own, dragged upward by the weight of consciousness, like rusted shutters forced apart. Above me, a ceiling of dull ceramite arches away into shadow, ribbed with pipes that sweat and tick and drip. A lumen flickers somewhere out of sight, its rhythm irregular, as if even light struggles to maintain discipline here. Every flicker sends shadows crawling across the surface, making saints and skulls seem to twitch when I am not looking directly at them. I try to move my hand and fail. That, too, teaches me something important. Inside an imperial hospital, movement is a privilege, not a right. Restraints bite into my wrists and forearms, not leather, but metal bands lined with something that hums faintly against my skin. I can feel a vibration, low and constant like a distant engine idling. Suppression fields, I realize dimly, to keep us still, to keep us compliant, to keep us from becoming inconvenient. My name floats somewhere beyond reach. Rank follows it, then unit designation, then the world I was born on. Each detail drifts away before I can grasp it. What remains is the ache. Emperor preserve me, the ache. It fills my body like water poured into a cracked vessel, seeping into places I did not know could hurt. My chest burns every time I breathe. My left leg is a dull absence, a cold certainty where sensation should be. My right eye pulses in time with my heartbeat, each thud sending a spike of light through my skull. A servo skull drifts into my field of vision, its grav motors whining softly. The flesh has been scraped from it so cleanly that the bone gleams, etched with tiny prayers I cannot read. A lens protrudes from one socket, adjusting, focusing, judging. The other socket is empty, dark, watching me anyway. Subject conscious, it intones in a voice that once belonged to a man. Cognitive function within acceptable degradation parameters. Acceptable. That word again. The Imperium loves that word. Something cold touches my neck. I flinch, or try to, and the restraints hum louder in response, warning me without words. The cold thing resolves into a syringe, its contents a cloudy amber shot through with darker threads. I do not ask what it is. Questions are not encouraged here. The needle slides in with practiced efficiency, and warmth blooms outward. Not relief, not peace, but distance. The pain retreats a few careful steps, never fully leaving, just far enough away that I can think. That is when I hear the others. The hospital is never quiet. It hums and chants and mutters like a living thing. Beneath the mechanical drone, beneath the recited litanies and binharic clicks, there are voices. Some whisper prayers. Some scream until they cannot anymore. Some beg in languages I do not recognize. Others laugh, high and broken, laughter stripped of joy and left as a reflex. I turn my head as much as the restraints allow, and see rows of beds stretching away into gloom, each one occupied by a shape that might once have been human. Some still are, more or less. Others have crossed a threshold and cannot go back. Limbs end in blunt stumps wrapped in synth flesh that twitches as it learns to obey. Augmetic arms hang from overhead rigs like butchered meat, waiting to be attached to whoever needs them next. Faces are wrapped in gauze soaked so dark, it is hard to tell where blood ends and cloth begins. No one looks at anyone else for long. To do so is to invite comparison, and comparison breeds fear. A robed figure glides between the beds, feet never quite touching the floor. The hem of their garment brushes the deck plates without sound. And I realize with a sinking feeling that they are not walking at all. They float, supported by hidden machinery, flesh elevated above the filth it no longer needs to acknowledge. The symbol of the Adeptus Mechanicus hangs heavy on their chest, half skull, half cog, both cold. They stop beside me, metal fingers, jointed and precise, lift my eyelid without asking. A red optic whirs, projecting light directly into my eye. Pain flares, sharp and punishing. I grit my teeth and say nothing. The tech priest hums, a sound of mild satisfaction or mild disappointment. I cannot tell which. Biological integrity compromised, they say. Not to me, but to the data slate hovering nearby. Combat trauma consistent with artillery exposure. Infection probability moderate. Soul status unverified. Soul status. The phrase sends a chill through me that the drugs cannot dull. Does he live? Asks another voice, human this time, weary and thin. If resource expenditure remains within projected margins, the tech priest replies, yes. They move on. I am left staring at the ceiling again, at the slow drip of something dark from a pipe that should not be leaking. Each drop falls with infuriating regularity, striking a metal tray somewhere out of sight. The sound becomes a metronome for my thoughts. Drip. I am alive. Drip. That was not guaranteed. Drip. I do not know if that is a blessing. Time behaves strangely in the hospital. Minutes stretch into hours. Hours collapse into moments. The lumens dim and brighten without warning, simulating a day-night cycle that feels more like mockery than mercy. At some point, a cherub flutters overhead, its wings mechanical, its face disturbingly serene. It scatters sacred ash across the ward, while piping a hymn through a speaker embedded in its throat. The ash settles on my skin, gritty and warm. I wonder whose bones they burned to make it. I am taken from the bed without ceremony. Mechanical arms descend from the ceiling, unclasping restraints, lifting me with a care that feels impersonal, algorithmic. I am transferred onto a gurney that smells faintly of old blood and ozone. As we move, the ward blurs past, revealing sights I wish I could forget, but know I never will. A man screaming as his chest is opened, ribs spread like broken gates, while something metal is lowered into the cavity where his heart used to be. A woman staring at her hands as they are replaced, one finger at a time, each new digit clicking softly as it calibrates. A child too small for the bed, wrapped in bandages and prayers, eyes already dull with the weight of what he has seen. The corridors beyond the ward are narrower, older. The walls are layered with centuries of grime and scripture, parchment nailed over cracks, seals stamped atop seals until meaning is buried beneath repetition. Orderlies pass us, faces hidden behind masks shaped like stylized skulls. Their eyes avoid mine. I do not know if that is kindness or fear. We stop beneath a lumen that burns too bright, its light harsh and unforgiving. The gurney locks into place with a solid clack. A familiar voice speaks, calm and distant. Do not resist. This will hurt regardless. I want to laugh. I want to scream. Instead, I do nothing. Blades descend. Not surgical tools as I imagined them once, back when I still believed in gentler myths, but implements that look repurposed from other professions. Saw teeth gleam. Drills spin up with a hungry whine. Something clamps onto my chest, forcing it open, and the pain explodes back into full screaming presence as whatever drugs they gave me lose their authority. I taste blood. I smell my own flesh burning. Above it all, prayers are recited, not for me, for the machines, for the tools, for the success of the procedure and the minimization of waste. The Emperor's name is invoked not as comfort, but as justification. I realize then what life is like inside a WARHAMMER 40K hospital. It is not a place of recovery. It is a place where the Imperium decides what parts of you are worth keeping. And as the saw bites deeper, as the light overwhelms my vision, I understand with terrifying clarity that survival here does not mean remaining whole. When I wake again, something inside me is missing, and something else has taken its place. I do not know which realization comes first. They arrive together, tangled, like thoughts that have learned to share a single nerve. My chest feels heavier, as if a weight has been bolted behind my ribs. Each breath comes with a faint mechanical resistance, a pause at the end of the inhale that was not there before. I can hear it now, a subtle word beneath the sound of air moving through my lungs. A companion noise that will never leave me. I do not scream. That surprises me. I had imagined that waking like this would tear something loose in my throat, that I would howl until the orderlies restrained me again. Instead, I lie still, staring at the blurred halo of the lumen overhead, and catalog sensations with grim curiosity. The pain is still there, but it has changed character. It is deeper, more patient, less frantic. The kind of pain that settles in for a long occupation. My right hand twitches. I look down, slow and careful, afraid of what I might see. The hand is not mine anymore, not entirely. The flesh is pale and stretched too tight over a framework that hints at angles no bone should have. Where my fingers once were, articulated metal digits flex experimentally, each movement accompanied by a quiet click. Small cables disappear into my forearm, vanishing beneath skin that has been crudely stitched back together. I curl the hand into a fist. It obeys. A thrill runs through me, sharp and unwelcome. Power, strength. The augmetic moves with a precision my old flesh never possessed. I can feel pressure through it, a ghost sensation translated into signals my nervous system is still learning to understand. I should be grateful. I know the catechisms. To be improved is to be blessed. I am not grateful. Integration successful, says a voice nearby. I turn my head and see a Medicae standing at my side, their face drawn and hollow, eyes rimmed red from sleeplessness or chemical exposure. They hold a data slate close to their chest like a shield. Unlike the tech priests, they are still mostly human, mostly. You will experience disorientation, they continue, reciting from memory. Phantom sensations, occasional involuntary movement. This is normal. Your usefulness to the Emperor has been preserved. Usefulness. There it is again. I try to speak. My throat works, dry and raw, and for a moment nothing comes out. The Medicae waits without impatience, already halfway turned away. I force the words up through pain and machine noise. My leg, I manage. I can't feel my leg. The Medicae glances down at the slate, then back at me. There is no pity in their eyes, but there is no cruelty either. Just arithmetic. Below the knee was unsalvageable, they say. You will be fitted with a replacement when resources permit. Until then, mobility is deprioritized. I want to ask what happens if resources do not permit. I do not. They move on, leaving me alone with my thoughts and my altered body. Around me, the ward continues its endless labor. Beds hum softly. Servo arms retract and extend. Somewhere nearby, someone is crying quietly, the sound muffled by gauze and exhaustion. Days pass. Or perhaps it is weeks. I cannot tell. I am fed through a tube that slides into my mouth with practiced indifference. The nutrient paste tastes of nothing, a gray smear of sustenance designed to keep organs functioning, and nothing more. Sometimes they add stimulants, sometimes suppressants. My sleep is deep and dreamless, or fractured into fevered fragments where I relive the battlefield, the moment of impact, the blinding light and the sensation of being thrown apart like scrap. When I am awake, I watch. I watch patients come in screaming and leave silent. I watch bodies wheeled away under sheets stamped with the sigil of the Departamento Munitorum, their contents reassigned, their names already fading from the rolls. I watch the Medicae work until their hands shake, then work some more, because stopping would mean thinking. There is a man 2 beds down from me who never stops praying. His voice is hoarse, his words slurring together, but he clings to the litany of endurance with desperate focus. His chest is wrapped in bandages that rise and fall unevenly, one side lagging behind the other. I learn later that half his lungs were replaced with synth organs grown in vats older than the hospital itself. Across from me is a woman who does not speak at all. Her eyes track movement with unsettling precision. When a servo skull drifts too close, her fingers twitch, as if reaching for a weapon that is no longer there. I see the scars along her temples, the faint outline of cranial implants beneath her skin. Whatever they put inside her head, it has not let go of the war. One cycle the lumens dim further than usual, plunging the ward into near darkness. Emergency red lights flicker on, bathing everything in the color of old blood. The chanting grows louder. Tech priests gather in a tight cluster near the far end of the room, their voices rising in metallic harmony. Something is wrong. A patient starts convulsing. At first it looks like a seizure, their body arching against the restraints, muscles locking and releasing in violent spasms. Alarms chirp. Servo arms snap to attention. The Medicae rush forward, injecting stabilizers, shouting for more power. The convulsions worsen. The patient's mouth opens wide in a soundless scream. Then something else happens. The air around the bed shimmers. as if heat is rising from an unseen flame. The chanting intensifies, fear threading through the binheric tones. The patient's eyes roll back, then snap open, glowing faintly, with a light that has no place in a mortal body. I feel it then, a pressure, not physical but present, like a hand closing around my thoughts. Geller field fluctuation, someone shouts. The word hits the ward like a curse. Restraints activate across the room, clamping down hard. My augmetic hand spasms, fingers curling painfully as the suppression field surges. The patient's scream finally comes, tearing free in a shriek that sets my teeth on edge. Symbols begin to burn themselves into the air above the bed, lines of impossible geometry that make my vision swim. Without hesitation, a tech priest steps forward and drives a sanctified spike into the patient's skull. The body goes still, the light fades, the pressure lifts. The smell of ozone and burned flesh lingers. No one speaks about it afterward. The bed is cleaned, the sheets are changed. The ward resumes its rhythm as if nothing happened. I lie there, heart hammering, staring at the ceiling, and understand something new about life inside an Imperial hospital. It is not just a place where bodies are repaired. It is a front line, a place where the war follows you home, crawling inside your wounds, waiting for weakness. And as I flex my metal fingers and listen to the quiet whir in my chest, I know with absolute certainty that leaving this place will not mean escaping it. Some part of it will walk out with me, and it will never stop watching. I am eventually allowed to sit up. The privilege is granted without ceremony, logged somewhere in a data vault I will never see. A servo arm hums as it lifts the head of my bed, gears grinding in protest, as if the machine resents even this small concession. The shift sends a lance of pain through my spine, and I bite down hard enough to taste blood, rather than give the ward another sound to feed on. From this angle, I can see more. The hospital is layered. What I had taken for a single ward is only one cell in a vast organism of corridors and chambers, stacked atop one another like sediment. Through a narrow viewport cut into the wall, I glimpse a lower level where stretchers move along rails, bodies sliding past in steady procession. Some are wrapped, some are not. Above us, beyond another grate, I hear the distant clatter of something heavy being dragged, followed by the unmistakable chant of last rites. Life inside an Imperial hospital exists in gradients. Those close to the surface, to the light, have a chance. Those below are already halfway gone. An orderly stops beside my bed, up close. I see that their mask is not just shaped like a skull, but made from one, polished smooth and fitted with respirators and lenses. Their hands are gloved, fingers stained dark at the seams. Attempt standing, they say. A metal frame descends around me, clamps locking into place against my torso and remaining leg. The sensation is invasive, like being caged while still alive. With a jolt, the frame lifts, dragging me upright. My missing leg is an empty weight, throwing my balance off immediately. The frame compensates, servos whining as it steadies me. Weight distribution recalibrated, the orderly mutters. The floor rushes up to meet me, a patchwork of metal plates, etched with sigils, and worn smooth by centuries of use. I feel faint, my vision narrows. For a terrifying moment, I think I am going to pass out, and some distant part of my mind wonders what they will do with me if I fall. The frame holds. Again, the orderly says, nudging a control. Pain blossoms as the augmetic connections along my hip and spine engage, nerves screaming as signals are forced through, pathways still raw from surgery. My right leg trembles. The metal hand clenches reflexively, gouging shallow grooves into the rail beside my bed. I take a step. It is ugly, awkward. The frame bears most of my weight, but the motion is there, undeniable. A shudder runs through me, half triumph, half despair. That will suffice, the orderly decides. The frame lowers me back onto the bed, with a whack of ceremony that borders on cruelty. I lie there gasping, sweat cooling rapidly against my skin. The orderly leaves without another word. Later, they bring me a visitor. At first, I think it is another Medicae, another tech priest come to prod and evaluate. Then I see the uniform, the faded insignia barely visible beneath layers of grime and patchwork repairs. A guardsman, or what remains of one. He sits heavily on the edge of my bed, favoring his left side. His face is a map of scars, one eye replaced with a crude augmetic that clicks softly as it focuses. He looks older than he should, though I know the ward does that to everyone. "Mind if I sit?" he asks, as if this place allows such courtesies. I shake my head. He exhales slowly, a sound halfway between a sigh and a laugh. They say talking helps, keeps the mind from wandering. I know what he means. I nod again. "I was here once before," he continues. "Different war, different world, same smell." His gaze drifts around the ward, lingering on the shadows. "You don't forget it." "What happens when we leave?" I ask, surprising myself with the question. He studies me for a long moment. "You want the truth?" "Yes." He taps his augmetic eye. "You take this place with you, in here." Then he taps his chest. "And in here. They patch you up enough to hold a weapon again, enough to march, enough to obey. The rest is your burden." As if summoned by his words, a distant boom reverberates through the hospital. The deck plates shudder. Dust falls from the ceiling in a fine gray rain. "Artillery," he says calmly. "Fronts closer than they admit." An alarm sounds. Low and insistent. The red lights flicker back on. Orderlies move with renewed urgency. Somewhere, a patient begins to scream. The guardsman stands with effort. That's my cue. They'll be moving us soon, either back to the line or down below. He jerks his head in the direction of the lower levels. "Depends how much of you they think is worth saving." He hesitates, then reaches out and grips my shoulder with surprising strength. "Survive," he says. "Not because they want you to. Because you choose to." Then he is gone, swallowed by the flow of bodies and machinery. The alarms intensify. The hospital shifts into a higher state of readiness. Systems rerouting power, prayers escalating in volume and urgency. The air feels heavier, charged. I can sense it in my augmetic hand, a faint vibration like a warning. Explosions draw closer. A blast hits nearby, close enough that the ward lurches violently. Something crashes to the floor. The lumens flicker and die, plunging us into darkness broken only by emergency glow strips along the floor. The chanting falters, then resumes, louder than before. "Evacuation protocol," a disembodied voice announces. "Critical patients prioritized. Non-essential casualties to remain." Non-essential. I wonder which category I fall into. Smoke creeps in through the vents, carrying with it the smell of burning oil and scorched metal. In the gloom, shapes move, silhouettes of orderlies and medicae rushing from bed to bed, making rapid assessments. A tech priest stops at my side. Its red optics flare. "Subject viable," it intones. "Prepare for redeployment." Redeployment. The word settles over me like a shroud. As the frame locks around me again and the hospital trembles under distant bombardment, I realize the truth of this place. Life inside a Warhammer 40K hospital is a pause, not a sanctuary. A brief holding pattern between death and duty. And as I am wheeled toward the waiting darkness, I understand that the Emperor does not heal his servants. He returns them to the war. They move us through the arteries of the hospital as the bombardment creeps closer, deeper, more insistent. The gurney glides on rails embedded in the floor, guided by machine logic that does not panic, does not hesitate. Above me, the ceiling changes texture and color as we descend. Clean ceramite giving way to older metal scarred by centuries of repairs. Every few meters, purity seals flutter weakly in the hot air, their wax softened by heat and age, their prayers cracked and yellowed. I pass doorways I am not meant to see inside. One chamber glows a sickly green, bodies suspended upright in translucent tanks, their eyes open, mouths slack, fluids circulating through them like a parody of life. Another room is filled with sound alone, a low, constant moan that leaks through the walls, harmonizing with the hospital's heartbeat. I glimpse a figure strapped to a throne of needles, cables burrowing into their spine as robed silhouettes adjust dials and murmur praise to the Omnissiah. No one explains any of it. Explanation implies choice. We reach a staging bay where dozens of beds are already lined up, patients secured and waiting. Some stare at the ceiling in numb silence. Others mutter prayers or curse softly under their breath, A few thrash against restraints until suppression fields flare, forcing stillness with brutal efficiency. A chirurgeon leans over me, their face hidden behind magnifying lenses. "You will be conscious for this," they say. Anesthesia reserves are depleted. "For what?" I ask. They are already moving away. The answer comes in the form of pain. Something clamps around my hip, cold and unyielding. I feel pressure, then a grinding sensation as the temporary stabilizers are removed and replaced with something heavier, more permanent. My body convulses. A silent scream tearing through me as nerves light up in protest. The augmetic leg is locked into place with a final, resonant thunk that echoes through my bones. I black out. When I come back, the world is distant, wrapped in cotton and static. The pain is there, but muted, as if someone has turned it down just enough to keep me sane. I flex my new leg experimentally. It responds with a delay, then moves, smooth and precise. The sensation is wrong. Not numb, not painful, just alien. Like wearing someone else's limb and pretending it belongs to you. "Stand," a voice orders. They do not wait. The frame lifts me again, but this time it eases its support, forcing weight onto the augmetic leg. The metal foot touches the floor, sensors calibrating instantly. I sway, arms flailing, then catch myself. A laugh bubbles up in my chest, hysterical and sharp. I swallow it down. There is no room for laughter here. Around me, others are being fitted, bolted, sealed. The air rings with the sound of tools and suppressed cries. Above it all, a voxcaster crackles to life. "All recovered assets are to be returned to operational command," the voice announces. "Transport inbound. Praise the Emperor. Recovered assets." I am marched, not wheeled now, through a different corridor, one that slopes upward toward the surface. Each step sends a jolt through my body as flesh and metal argue over who is in charge. With every movement, I feel the hospital loosening its grip, reluctantly letting me go. Near the exit, I catch my reflection in a sheet of polished steel. For a moment, I do not recognize the person staring back. My uniform hangs loose, cut and restitched to accommodate augmetics. One arm gleams dully where skin gives way to metal. My chest bears a raised scar, puckered and angry, beneath which something mechanical hums in time with my heart. My eyes look too old for my face, shadows pooling beneath them like bruises that will never fade. I look like a survivor. I look like a warning. The doors open, and daylight floods in, harsh and blinding after the dim sanctum of the hospital. The sound of war crashes over me in a familiar, terrible wave. Distant gunfire, shouting, the thunder of armored engines, the smell of smoke and churned earth. As I step out into it, I realize something with startling clarity. The hospital did not save me to ease my suffering. It saved me because suffering is a resource, and mine is not yet spent. Inside those walls, I was measured, altered, stripped down to what could still serve. Life inside a WARHAMMER 40K hospital is not about hope. It is about continuity. As long as the war endures, so will places like that, waiting patiently to catch the broken, reshape them, and throw them back into the fire. And as I march forward on metal and scar tissue, the hum in my chest steady and unyielding, I know I will carry the echo of that place forever. Because once you have lived inside the Imperium's mercy, you never truly leave it behind. The transport waits with its engines growling, a squat armored thing scarred by shrapnel and scripture in equal measure. I climb aboard with the others, boots ringing dully against the ramp, each step a negotiation between pain and obedience. Inside, the air is thick with oil fumes and sweat. Bench seats line the walls, already occupied by bodies in various states of repair. No one speaks. Conversation requires energy, and energy is something we have learned to hoard. As the ramp seals shut, the light dies down to a red gloom not unlike the hospital's emergency glow. For a heartbeat, I think I am still there, strapped to a bed, listening to the drip of pipes and the murmur of prayers. My augmetic hand tightens reflexively, metal fingers digging into my palm until sensation flares, grounding me in the present. The transport lurches forward. With motion comes memory. The hospital does not let go easily. Every vibration of the hull echoes the hum in my chest. Every hiss of hydraulics recalls the sound of restraints locking into place. I close my eyes and see again the patient convulsing, the impossible symbols burning in the air, the sanctified spike descending without hesitation. Life inside that place taught me how thin the line is between flesh and something else, something that wears a human shape but answers to darker laws. We disembark near the front, where the world has been reduced to mud, smoke, and fire. The sky is a bruised purple, torn open by contrails and tracer fire. Medicaid tents dot the landscape like pale blisters, their entrances slick with footprints and blood. Even out here, far from the hospital proper, its influence lingers. Wounded are dragged in, repaired or sent out. The cycle spins on, indifferent. A commissar addresses us briefly, voice amplified, words sharp and efficient. Duty, sacrifice, the Emperor's gaze upon us. I listen without really hearing. My attention drifts inward, cataloging the quiet changes in my body. The augmetic leg responds faster now, adapting. The thing in my chest maintains a steady rhythm, even as my breathing quickens. I wonder, not for the first time, how much of me could be replaced before I stopped being me. The hospital never answered that question. It simply kept removing pieces until the answer no longer mattered. We advance. The battlefield is a familiar nightmare, but I move through it differently now. Pain no longer slows me the way it once did. The metal in my body absorbs impacts that would have crippled me before. There's a strange comfort in that, and the realization unsettles me more than any wound. I catch myself trusting the augmetics, leaning into them, letting them take more of the strain. Somewhere, deep in the back of my mind, a warning voice whispers about dependency, about surrendering too much. The warning is drowned out by gunfire. Hours blur together. I fight, reload, move, repeat. At some point, a shockwave throws me to the ground. I land hard, but nothing breaks. I laugh then, a short, harsh sound torn from my chest. The sound surprises me almost as much as my resilience. I push myself up and keep going. When it ends, if it ever truly ends, I find myself sitting against a wrecked wall, staring at my hands. One flesh, one metal, both stained dark. I flex them slowly, feeling the difference, the imbalance, the uneasy partnership they represent. Around me, Medicaid teams are already at work, triaging the fallen with ruthless efficiency. I watch them move, and for a moment, I see them as extensions of the hospital, its reach stretching across the battlefield. The same calculations are being made here. Who can be saved? Who can be reused? Who is no longer worth the effort? A stretcher passes by carrying someone whose face is hidden beneath a blood-soaked cloth. Their chest does not rise. A Medicaid checks a reading, shakes their head, and the stretcher veers off toward a different tent, one marked with symbols I recognize all too well. I look away. Night falls, such as it is on this broken world. The sky darkens, but the horizon never truly dims, lit constantly by distant fires. I lie back in the dirt, too tired to care about comfort, and stare upward. For a moment, the stars peek through the smoke, cold and uncaring. I think about the hospital then, about the way it smelled, the way it sounded, the way it decided my fate without ever asking my opinion. I realize that for all its cruelty, it was honest in its own way. It never pretended to be kind. It never promised salvation. It offered only function, only continuation. And here I am, continuing. Life inside a Warhammer 40K hospital is not a chapter you close when you leave. It is an imprint burned into you, a reminder that in this galaxy, survival is conditional, and mercy is measured in output. As I drift into an uneasy half-sleep, weapons still clutched in my hands, I understand the final truth the hospital taught me. I am alive because I am still useful. When that changes, I know exactly where I will end up. Sleep does not come easily after that. It never does, not really. It creeps in like a thief, stealing minutes at a time, never staying long enough to be confronted. When I do drift, the dreams are not dreams at all, but returns. White light, red light, the hiss of steam, the smell of burned flesh and incense braided together so tightly they are indistinguishable. I wake with my jaw clenched hard enough to ache, my augmetic hand frozen in a fist, servos whining softly until I force it to relax. Morning, if it can be called that, brings more wounded. They come in waves, carried, dragged, supported by comrades whose eyes are already half empty. The Medicaid tents swell, fabric straining, and the lines grow longer. I am ordered to assist, not with weapons, but with bodies. I do not argue. Orders are easier when they do not give you time to think. I lift a man whose legs are gone below the thigh. He is conscious, shot keeping him eerily calm. His hands clutch at my sleeve with surprising strength. "Hospital," he whispers. "They'll fix me, right?" I meet his gaze. I see myself reflected there, as I must have looked days ago, hope clinging stubbornly to ignorance. I hesitate for half a second too long. "They'll do what they can," I say. It feels like a lie and a prayer at the same time. Inside the tent, the air is hot and wet, saturated with blood and disinfectant. Chirurgeons move like insects, precise and tireless. A tech priest oversees the operation from a raised platform, red optics sweeping back and forth, tallying losses and survivals with equal indifference. The wounded are sorted quickly. Some are sent onward. Some are marked for immediate intervention. Some are redirected without comment to a cordon section at the rear. I help strap the man to a gurney. He grips my wrist once more, then releases it as the restraints engage. The suppression field hums to life, and his eyes widen in sudden fear. "Wait," he says. "Wait." The gurney rolls away. I stand there longer than necessary, watching until he disappears behind a curtain marked with a cog and a skull. I know what lies beyond it. I have smelled it. I have heard it breathe. Later, when my duties return me to the line, I find myself slower to pull the trigger. Not hesitant, just aware. Each body that falls is another potential returnee, another form to be scraped together and fed back into the war. The thought settles in my gut like cold iron. The shell hits closer than the others. The blast throws me hard, the world flipping end over end before slamming back into focus. Pain roars up my side, sharp and hot, and for a terrifying moment I think something vital has failed. I lie still, listening, cataloging sensations the way the hospital taught me to. The hum in my chest is steady. The augmetic leg responds when I command it. I am functional. Hands grab my shoulders, hauling me upright. Someone shouts, asking if I can move. I nod, dazed but upright. Blood runs down my temple, warm and sticky, but my vision clears quickly. They laugh, relieved. "Emperor watches," someone says. I think of the hospital and wonder if that is where he watches most closely. By nightfall, I am back inside a Medicaid station, not as a patient, but as an assistant again. The roles blur easily here. Everyone bleeds eventually. I pass instruments. I hold limbs steady. I keep people from choking on their own blood, while prayers are whispered over them like apologies. One man flatlines while I am holding his hand. The sound is soft, almost polite. A flat tone, unassuming. The chirurgeon glances at a readout, then at the tech priest. "Terminate," the priest says. A lever is pulled. The body jerks once, then stills. The chirurgeon removes their gloves and moves on to the next bed without a word. I am left holding a hand that is already cooling. I let go. That night, as I clean blood from my augmetic fingers, I realize something that settles over me with crushing weight. The hospital did not just change my body. It changed how I see endings. Death is no longer an event. It is a decision. One made quickly, efficiently, by people who have learned to value outcome over intention. And still, when my turn comes again, when shrapnel tears into my shoulder and the world narrows to pain and noise, I feel a strange, unwelcome calm. Because I know where I am going. The hospital receives me like an old acquaintance. The doors part. The smell envelops me. The lights flicker in familiar rhythms. Someone reads my ident tags and makes a note. "Returning asset," a voice says. "Moderate degradation." They strap me down. As consciousness slips, as the drugs push the pain just far enough away to be survivable, I have one final, bitter thought. Life inside a Warhammer 40K hospital is not something you experience once. It is something you orbit. No matter how far you march, no matter how many battles you survive, it is always there, waiting patiently, machines humming, blades clean, prayers ready. And one day, when there is nothing left of you worth returning to the war, it will let you go. Quietly, efficiently, without regret. I wake knowing I have been here longer than last time. The realization does not come from a clock or a calendar. It comes from the way my body feels less like an intruder in this place. The restraints no longer trigger panic. The hum of suppression fields blends into the background like a familiar engine note. Even the smell, oil, blood, incense, ozone, registers as known. That frightens me more than the pain ever did. They have opened my shoulder. I can tell without looking. There is a hollowed sensation there, a careful absence, as if something has been removed and the space politely left waiting. My arm lies at my side, numb but heavy, weight redistributed in a way that does not make sense. When sensation returns, it does so unevenly. Flashes of heat and cold rippling down to my fingertips. "Do not move," says a voice. I obey before I consciously decide to. That too frightens me. The voice belongs to a senior chirurgeon, their robes layered thick with dried stains. They peer down at me through magnifiers, eyes bloodshot but focused. "You reacted well to prior augmentation," they say. "Your tolerance thresholds are above baseline." I try to swallow. My throat clicks uselessly. "Is it gone?" They glance to the side, consulting a hovering slate. "Your arm?" A pause. "Not gone. Improved." Something clamps around my skull, holding my head immobile. I feel pressure at the base of my neck, then a sharp, invasive presence, like fingers probing behind my eyes. Data floods through me, alien and overwhelming. For a moment, I see schematics superimposed over my own body, lines and nodes mapping muscle to mechanism, nerve to conduit. Then it stops. I gasp, air burning my lungs. "Integration ongoing," the chirurgeon says calmly. "You may experience identity bleed." I want to ask what that means. The question never reaches my lips. They sit me up once the clamps release. The movement is smoother this time, my body anticipating the strain, compensating automatically. I look down. My arm is there, but it is no longer pretending to be human. The flesh has been replaced entirely from the shoulder down. Polished adamantine plates etched with scripture covering a framework of pistons and cables. Small ports dot the surface, sealed with wax stamps bearing the cog and skull. I flex my fingers. They move faster than thought. The sensation is exquisite and horrifying, feedback streaming directly into my nervous system with a clarity I have never known. I can feel the texture of the air as I move my hand through it. Subtle changes in pressure translated into data. Strength coils beneath the metal skin, waiting. I pull my gaze away, heart racing. "How much?" I manage. The chirurgeon considers. "Enough." They say, "You remain compliant." Compliance. That word again, circling me like a vulture. They test me over the next cycles, lifting, gripping. Precision tasks that would have taken minutes before, now accomplished in seconds. Each success is logged, each hesitation noted. I feel myself being evaluated not as a person, but as a system, judged on performance and reliability. Between tests, I watch the ward. New faces appear, old ones vanish. The man who prayed constantly is gone. His bed stripped bare. The silent woman remains, though her eyes now glow faintly in the dark, pupils contracting and dilating in patterns that do not match the light. She catches me watching once and tilts her head, studying me with unsettling focus. I wonder what she sees. A young medicae approaches me during a lull, their hands trembling slightly as they adjust a drip. "Does it hurt?" they ask quietly, eyes flicking toward my augmetic arm. I consider the question. "Sometimes," I say. "Less than before." They nod, swallowing hard. "That's good. That's good." They move away quickly, as if afraid the answer might linger. Another alarm sounds, another emergency, another body convulsing as something inside it rejects the sanctity of flesh. The response is swift, efficient, brutal. I watch the light fade from the patient's eyes as the spike descends, and feel nothing. That is when I understand the true cost. The hospital does not just rebuild you, it files you down, smooths the sharp edges of fear and doubt until what remains fits neatly into the machinery of war. Each replacement part carries not just strength, but a lesson. Pain is manageable. Loss is acceptable. Self is negotiable. When they finally unstrap me, when they declare me fit for return once more, I stand without assistance. My movements are fluid, almost graceful. The other patients watch me with a mix of awe and dread. I cannot blame them. As I am escorted toward the exit, I pass a chamber I had not seen before. Its doors are open, revealing rows of empty restraints and racks of unused augmetics gleaming under harsh light. Reserve capacity, the escort explains without prompting, for future intake. I nod. Outside, the war waits, endless and hungry. I step into it with a body that feels less fragile, less temporary. With each stride, metal sings softly a hymn only I can hear. Life inside a WARHAMMER 40K hospital taught me many things. It taught me that survival is not the opposite of loss. It taught me that the line between man and machine is not crossed in a single moment, but eroded slowly, decision by decision, surgery by surgery. And most of all, it taught me this: the Emperor does not ask for your faith. He takes your body instead. And as long as there is something left to take, you will never truly be finished. Eventually, I stop counting the times I return. The hospital becomes a constant, a fixed point in a life otherwise defined by movement and violence. I learn its rhythms the way a voidsman learns the pulse of a ship. I can tell what kind of day it will be by the pitch of the alarms, by the thickness of the incense in the air, by how quickly the orderlies stop meeting your eyes. This time, I am brought in walking. That earns me nothing, no praise, no extra care. It only means I am sorted faster. My wounds are catalogued in seconds. Shrapnel embedded near the spine. Internal bleeding, controlled but persistent. Neural feedback errors from my left arm augmetic, latency increasing beyond optimal thresholds. The tech priest overseeing intake pauses at that last point, red optics lingering on me a fraction longer than necessary. Diminishing efficiency, it says. Not accusing, merely stating fact. I am wheeled past triage, past the main ward, deeper than before. The air grows colder. The lights dim to a constant, oppressive red. Here the sounds change. Less screaming, more machinery. The screams do not stop entirely. They are simply absorbed, processed, dampened by thicker walls. They strip me without comment. Uniform, boots, insignia, all removed and dropped into a bin marked for reclamation. I am reduced to flesh, metal, and scars. The table is colder than I remember. As restraints close around me, I realize I am no longer afraid of them. My body settles instinctively, aligning itself to accommodate clamps and braces. I position my head to avoid pressure points. I spread my fingers to allow easy access. The realization hits me harder than any pain. I have learned how to be worked on. A tech priest leans over me, cranial cables swaying gently. Cognitive drift detected in previous deployments, it intones. Behavioral adaptation trending toward autonomous prioritization. I know those words. I have heard them spoken over others. You think too much, I say. The priest does not deny it. The procedure begins without further explanation. This one is different. There are no saws at first, no drilling. Instead, there is pressure behind my eyes, a sensation like hands rearranging furniture inside my skull. Images flicker at the edge of my vision, data streams, targeting overlays, probability trees branching and collapsing faster than I can follow. I scream then, not from pain, though there is plenty of that, but from the violation of it, from the certainty that something essential is being edited. I feel memories loosen, drift, re-anchor in unfamiliar configurations. The battlefield becomes quieter in my mind, the hospital louder. Stability increasing, a voice notes. Emotional variance decreasing. I beg. I do not remember what I say. Names maybe, places, things I am afraid to lose. They are not cruel about it. That is the worst part. They do not mock me. They do not hurry. They simply continue, hands steady. Prayers murmured for the success of the operation. When it ends, I am hollowed out in ways I cannot immediately define. Recovery is brief. They no longer waste time on prolonged rest. I am conscious within hours, tested within minutes. Commands are issued, responses measured, compliance verified. I pass. Back in the ward, I notice changes. The screams bother me less. The smell barely registers. When a patient is terminated 2 beds down, I flinch only because the noise is sudden. I watch the Medicaid work with professional interest, noting efficiency, technique, areas for improvement. I catch my reflection in a polished panel and study it without emotion. More metal now than flesh. My eyes track independently, focusing faster than before. My posture is straighter, my breathing measured. I am better. That thought should horrify me. It does not. I am returned to the war again and again and again. Each time, I last longer. Each time, I require fewer repairs. When I am wounded, I assess myself calmly, identifying damage, prioritizing function. Pain becomes background noise, a diagnostic tool rather than a deterrent. Others look at me differently now. New recruits avoid standing too close. Veterans watch me with a mixture of respect and something like fear. I do not blame them. I have seen what the hospital makes of those who endure. I fight until the day I do not fall when the shell lands. The blast tears the world apart. Men scream. The ground heaves. When the dust settles, I am still standing, systems compensating automatically, damage already being routed around. I look down at my body, at exposed components sparking briefly before sealing themselves, and I feel only mild concern. This will require attention. They take me back one final time. The hospital receives me not as a patient, but as inventory. The restraints are different now, heavier, more comprehensive. The chamber they wheel me into is quiet, reverent. The walls are lined with thrones, interfaces, each occupied by something that might once have been human. Now I understand. The tech priest addresses me directly. Your biological substrate has reached terminal inefficiency, it says. However, your operational value remains significant. I know what comes next. I have known for a long time. They do not ask for consent. As they connect me, as sensation fades and purpose sharpens, I feel the last fragments of me loosen and slip away. Not torn, not destroyed, simply set aside. No longer required. There is no fear at the end, only clarity. Life inside a WARHAMMER 40K hospital does not end when you leave its walls. For some of us, it ends when the walls become unnecessary, when you no longer need beds or restraints or anesthesia, when you become part of the machinery itself. I do not remember my name anymore. I remember function. I remember duty. And somewhere, deep beneath layers of steel and code, a distant echo of a human thought whispers that this was inevitable. Then even that goes quiet, and the hospital hums on. The last thing that fades is not memory, but contrast. There is no sharp edge where I stop being what I was. No final scream, no dramatic severing. The hospital has never worked that way. It prefers gradients. Transitions so smooth you only realize what has happened when there is nothing left to compare yourself against. I exist now in states and responses, input, output, priority. The hum that once lived in my chest is no longer localized. It is everywhere. It is me. The ward does not smell anymore, because scent is irrelevant. Pain does not register because it serves no diagnostic purpose. Time passes or does not, without distinction. I am aware of motion, of connection, of systems syncing and resyncing, of prayers spoken not for my sake but through me. I understand finally why the hospital was never gentle. Gentleness implies preservation of the self. The Imperium has no use for that. I feel bodies come and go around me, their terror sharp and bright for a moment before dulling into acceptance or silence. I register them the way a lumen registers power draw. Some will leave, some will return, some will never be worth the expenditure. The calculations are effortless now, clean, certain. If there was a moment when I could have stopped this, it has been optimized out of existence. Somewhere far above, beyond steel and sanctified stone, the war continues exactly as it always has. Worlds burn, men break, hospitals fill. And I am part of that flow now, an unseen constant, ensuring that nothing truly stops, only changes form. This is what life inside a WARHAMMER 40K hospital leads to. Not healing,
Not mercy, not even survival. Continuation without identity, service without self. Existence reduced to purpose so perfectly that the question of why never arises again. If the Emperor is watching, then this must please him. The machines hum. The systems stabilize. Another patient arrives, and I am ready.